I don't understand the fanfare behind Hearthstone. In fact, I'd barely call Hearthstone a game because of the sheer amount of luck this game runs on. Honestly, Hearthstone is embarrassingly similar to Solitaire or Hearts, something you pull up to pass the time but have no hope or expectation to win any one round. I've put in a decent amount of time over the last couple of months to try to figure out why it's considered competitive, but it's just objectively not. There are definitely things I think Hearthstone does amazingly well, but there are just too many flaws that take away from the enjoyment. Like all other card games, the driving force behind each Hearthstone match is luck of the draw. It seems like Blizzard tried to circumvent this by allowing players to make their own decks, but it's all immediately undone by what cards players have access to, how long it takes to catch up to longtime players, and the sheer number of available cards in general. See, after you pass Hearthstone's tutorial games, the player is granted access to a basic set of cards, a couple packs to open, and the opportunity to get some more cards by leveling up the individual heroes. That sounds like a pretty well-paced and balanced approach, except it lasts just as long as it takes you to get proficient at the game. And that's a couple days, tops. After you've exhausted your initial freebies, you're expected to either open up your wallet or spend all day grinding for coins. In the game, players make the most progress when they face off against real opponents, and when they do, the game's algorithm needs to find players of a similar skill level to pit players against. But the values of interest for the algorithm aren't stated. Are you being pitted against players of similar skill level, similar win-lose percentage, similar time spent in-game? Who knows? And that's the underlying problem. It's hard to compete with someone that is outside your range of skill and proficiency. Unfortunately, this is something you cue into really quickly. As soon as you start playing against human opponents, you start to understand that you don't stand a snowball's chance in hell most of the time. This is because, quite simply, someone has either played significantly longer than you and now has access to stronger specialized cards, or they simply bought them all from the get-go. I'm not condemning fans for putting money towards their hobbies, I'm against the algorithm constantly pitting players against virtually unbeatable decks. If your opponent simply has the better cards, you're screwed. Luck can only get you so far if you have nothing of value to draw from your deck. It's great that you can build your own deck, but the algorithm is somehow constantly stacked against newbies. As such, a player's game experience begins to depend exclusively on how much time they have to sink into the game, or how deep their pockets are. There's nothing fun, let alone competitive, about that. Hearthstone's next, equally terrible flaw is its lack of opportunities for players to catch up to their peers. You would think that a game that is so dependent on having good cards would provide players with at least semi-regular opportunities to get these cards for free. Unfortunately, that's wrong. Instead, the game provides daily quests for the players to complete that it then rewards with coins. These coins must then be saved to pay for individual packs, or you can pay an entry fee into a special game mode where wins may yield card packs. Except, I just explained that the player versus player matches are generally pretty one-sided. If you watched other Hearthstone review videos, you've probably been promised significant win streaks and the multitude of packs you'd earn from them. Unfortunately, those promises aren't just sugar-coated, they're unrealistic. So what's left? Well, Hearthstone does have a solo adventure mode where you can battle through various storylines. Except, as of making this video, one story mode is almost entirely pay-to-play, in which you need to buy individual chapters past the prologue, while the other story mode utilizes your own cards. You know, the ones with which you can't even defeat your peers, let alone a bot. Great, yet another dead end. In retrospect, this is probably why people consider the game to be competitive. It's become a competition for players to outspend each other in their quest for the newest cards, and in their race to be the first to beat the latest boss. This means that Hearthstone is then truly a game for those that can afford to buy into it, while the casual pawn scum skim the top until a certain lucky draw makes them worthy. Oddly enough, this leads me to point out one of the most interesting features of the game. Hearthstone is quite entertaining to observe. Since casual players can only dream about getting some of these rare and legendary cards, observing people play with decks full of them yields all the entertainment value, but carries none of the loser burn. People love projecting themselves onto others, and this is the perfect environment. Watching players wreck each other with the coolest, rarest, most badass cards, that's something other games can't mimic. Despite my earlier comparisons to Solitaire, Hearthstone is simply more engaging. Even if the individual matches leave you scowling at your screen, The amount of personality that was put into the game is impressive. For a game that has no overarching story and is simply filled with ghouls and monsters from Warcraft lore, I was pleasantly surprised at how robust and comedic the game really is. Everything that happens is all tied back to taking place in a nice, warm tavern in front of a crackling fire. The developers also put thought into the details. Voice lines for heroes, voice lines for cards, Easter eggs in the game boards, etc. In fact, if you enter your card collection, you can right-click on each card for another tidbit of lore, as well as see the name of the card artist. Credit where credit is due, that's really neat. The broken matchmaking system keeps me from becoming fully invested in the game, but it is a pretty solid game overall. Before I wrap this up, I want to address the obligatory, a free-to-play game will obviously have microtransactions comments. Like I said, my beef isn't with having packs to open and storylines you can pay for. My issue is that the rift between new, casual players versus dedicated, long-time ones is just huge. Once a player realizes that, the fun quickly seeps out of the game. You can't practice in Hearthstone and get better like you can in a shooter. You either have good cards or you don't. Based on that, I can hardly consider Hearthstone to be a competitive game. It's not competitive to have access to every weapon in the arsenal, and once you have the weapons, it's hardly competitive to be lucky. If you're still wondering why exactly I'm complaining so much, watch this match and tell me why the hell Blizzard thought they were a worthy opponent for me. Did I ever stand a chance? Did I make a mistake that would have turned the match around in my favor? Was there something I could take away from this match? No, I didn't stand a chance, and there was nothing for me to learn from. This wasn't fun, this wasn't competitive, this was a steamroll. In the end, I can't get past how unfriendly the game is towards casual players. I'll admit that the only reason I haven't uninstalled it yet is because I truly do find it interesting and engaging, and the short matches make for a great time killer. Maybe one day Blizzard will make some favorable changes, but I'm not holding my breath.